Point. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. We have three fascinating points this week. We've got Justin Dillon from slaveryfootprint.org talk about how corporations use slave labor and what can you do about it. That's really interesting. And then we've got University of Virginia football player Joseph Williams about his hunger strike to make sure that people working at the University of Virginia can get a living wage. And then Brazil has decided that they are going to subsidize plastic surgery for the poor. So that's also fascinating. But wait there, you got a lot on the panel. All right, Neal Brennan is a very popular stand-up comedian, writer, and the co-creator of a show you might have heard called The Chappelle Show.
Where's my camera?
Okay, Neal, focus. All right, now also Annie Duke, winner of a bracelet in 2004 World Series of Poker, the national heads-up champion in 2010, the author of Decide to Play Great Poker. I've already talked her ear off about poker, and in fact, this is all a big surprise for you guys because this panel is actually going to be about poker. No. All right, and Loyola Law School professor Kathleen Kim, who is one of the foremost experts in the country on human trafficking, which is actually our first point. So, without further ado, let's go to Justin Dillon's point.
Hi, my name's Justin Dillon. I'm founder and CEO of slaveryfootprint.org, an online platform that can tell you exactly how many slaves it takes to produce your lifestyle. My point is that I believe that if we want to create change at the bottom of the supply chain, we have to be able to get consumers on board. Consumers actually have to be able to demand change and work with brands to be able to create that change. Is that possible? Is it possible for consumers and brands to work together to be able to create change for those who are suffering at the bottom of the supply chain, roughly 27 million people? Every day I get up, I walk out of the house, and I either drink something, put on something, or talk through something that was made with slavery. The problem is most brands actually don't know where this is happening. They've got suppliers all over the world. For a consumer, that's simply not good enough. But how can consumers push brands and work with brands, not using torches and pitchforks, but using sharp carrots, actually create a demand in the marketplace so that brands can actually leverage their own consumption and push out the unscrupulous labor brokers who are actually profiting below the commodities line and forcing people to mine and harvest the raw materials that go in our products. Our goal is to make people care. Our end goal is to get brands to leverage their consumption to end slavery.
All right, well, obviously we brought Neal onto the panel to make slavery jokes.
Yeah, well, that's my stock and trade. Go ahead.
Okay. Or we can start with Professor Kim, who's the foremost expert on this. So talk to us about what do you think in terms of the average American? Do they have any idea that any slave labor is going into their products, let alone how much?
I think the average American's aware of hardworking conditions. You know, we have blue-collar background in our country, hard work will create better success in the future, et cetera. Americans are aware of low-wage industries that exist, but maybe the average American isn't aware of forced labor conditions, and that's what Justin Dillon is talking about, and forced labor conditions that exist even within our own country, let alone what happens internationally.
So we did this slaveryfootprint.org, all of us did, as he suggested in the video. I'm going to read the scores. They're a little depressing. First of all, Kathleen won. Congratulations. Okay. Oh, I'm the expert on this. Her footprint was only 37, but nonetheless.
I thought it was one slave. I thought you when you said one, I thought you meant one slave.
I don't know what the numbers are.
You would know the person.
Professor Kim, you got to tell me what these numbers mean if you do. Like, does that mean you owe 37? I don't know. I don't know what that means. Neal and I actually tied. We're at 56. Okay, so we're worse. We're using, I guess, more of that kind of labor. And Annie is
just richer than me.
Is that what it means?
Purchasing more products, yeah.
Okay, then all of a sudden we know who's the richest because Annie crushed us.
Wait, but
okay, Annie had his 76.
In my defense, I have 4 kids.
Right.
Which from the test really increases your footprint. If you have,
throw your kids under a bus. Nice.
I'm scoring for 5 people instead of 1. By ratio, I won.
So Professor Kim, what does it mean? What does it mean that we have these scores?
It means that we consume products, and I really respect Justin Dillon's message. I think that consumers have some complicity in the problem of international slave labor and need to pay attention to that. There needs to be more corporate accountability, but at the same time, our entire economic system is built on the premise that we're able to buy products, and we have a very large, low-income population in this country, and how would they be able to buy products if they weren't cheap enough for them to purchase, right?
Yeah, Neal, I don't know about you, but this guilted the hell out of me. And then I thought, okay, am I supposed
you'll get used to it.
It's fine? It's fine?
Yeah, no, it's fine. Don't pay attention to it. You feel bad. What I found that what was odd was, like, I feel like they asked how many pairs of socks do you have?
Yeah. Why? Who's making our socks, Professor?
Yeah, who is this? Now, that was like a big one, I think.
Yeah.
Socks and computers are big slaves.
Yeah, it almost made me want to throw away my boxers. I was like, I have too many boxers.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. But seriously, like, who's making them?
Well,
like,
a lot of garments are made in Bangladesh, which is notorious as having horrible labor conditions, child labor issues. A lot of our products are made in India, where child labor is very pervasive. And electronics. I mean, there's been so much in the media lately targeted at Apple, but the electronics
made it all up.
Yeah, some of it, yes,
happened?
a little bit of it was fabricated, but yeah, but the electronics industry has had a history of labor abuses, but we also need to be reminded that this is occurring within the United States. The electronics industry within the United States has sweatshop conditions.
So, Annie, go ahead, Neal.
My question is, when does minimum wage become sweatshop? And when does that become slavery?
Right, that's a really
What's
good
the
question.
demarcation?
That's a really good
That's
question.
why I cut you off, because it's such a good question.
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and my response is there's no dividing line. There's a continuum. There's a continuum between what Justin Dillon is calling slave labor, and then at the other end of the spectrum is what we would call labor exploitation, where workplace violations are taking place. If we permit that to happen, if we let employers get away with impunity, then we are complicit, once again, condoning even slave labor, the extreme end of that spectrum.
I know, but that spectrum is so important because minimum wage, I'm as lib as it gets, and I want to help people that are at minimum wage, but that's a sad day for you. I started at minimum wage, and look, et cetera. Whereas, like Dubai, built by almost exclusively slave labor, I read huge pieces about how those beautiful things that they have built, et cetera, they capture people's passports, they don't give it back to them, give them subsistence living so that they could only just sit there and work for these guys. I swore off going to Dubai based on that. Now, do I have to swear off a lot of things? And what's in that category? Because that's the category that I think is way out of bounds.
Right. I don't know. When you put it like that, I don't know how much of a dent consumers can make on the problem. The way we see it in the United States, as someone who's represented human trafficking victims for a long time and continues to work in that area as an academic, but still practices, I think that our immigration laws are very complicit. I think that our immigration restrictions create the conditions for forced labor conditions to happen in the United States. And if we really want systematic change, then we have to call upon our own government to make policy reforms that are going to eliminate the conditions that make individuals vulnerable to forced labor conditions.
So, Annie, you got your 4 kids that are ironically causing more child labor.
I would like to condemn Annie right now. I would like to condemn you for all of your slaves.
Right. So, here's the goofy things that I do, right? Like, so I won't go to Dubai and I buy free-range chicken. And so I feel like, okay, I'm halfway covered, right? So did this make you want to take any steps?
Well, I think actually that there's some lessons in what we've seen in the past in terms of how consumers can actually change things. So I think tuna is a really good example. So before they put dolphin safe on a can, I didn't know that there was a problem with dolphins in tuna. But some very smart company said, you know what, I bet consumers would really care that the little cute dolphins aren't dying, and so we're going to push the fact that this is dolphin safe, and they may actually pay a little bit more money for that. And that became an industry standard eventually because consumers became aware that this was an issue. And I know that there's organizations like the Enough Project, which are very involved in conflict minerals. And John Prendergast, who runs that, has said he's not trying to get people to stop buying iPhones or stop buying laptops, what he's trying to do is instead get consumers to be aware that there are products you can buy that use conflict minerals and products that you can buy that don't. And if consumers demand ones that don't have conflict minerals or don't use slave labor, and they're willing to pay a small premium for that, then the industry will just change. Because I just think it's unrealistic to say to someone like me, well, I'm going to have the only kid in school who doesn't have access to a computer so that I can have fewer slaves. Like, that's just not going to happen.
That's crazy talk. Yeah, there's no way that's going to happen. Now, I'm going to take your really smart point and make a goofy point off of it. Okay.
Right.
Because
I endorse this. Go ahead.
Because both you and I, we were talking before the show started, went to Penn, right?
Yes, right.
And I have a friend who
University of Pennsylvania. You just
right. That's true.
Yes,
In Philadelphia, right?
Yeah.
That's
And-
what is that, a humble brag or something?
Right. No. Because I want to tell the story of Billy Bob's. I don't know if you remember the cheesesteak place, Billy
Yes,
Bob's.
yes,
Okay.
I do.
Right. So a friend of mine goes in, and you can only get cheesesteak or chicken steak. If you order anything else, you get your ass kicked.
Yeah.
Okay. And they've
don't
got to
order whiz, otherwise they'll look at you funny.
Right, and they got to literally have a lead pipe. I've seen them use it
Yeah.
under the stove, right? And my friend goes in, we tell him chicken or cheese, chicken or cheese. He goes, okay, can I have some dolphin-free tuna? And we almost got killed that night, okay? And so my experience with dolphin-free tuna is like, oh, that's so goofy, right? But you know what? Isn't Annie right? Didn't that work? And so as goofy as you might think it is or not think it is,
fine.
isn't
But
that
I'd
great?
like to point out the idea of the hypocrisy of like, no problem killing tuna, because they're not nice to humans.
That's
Well,
interesting.
they're not
That's
mammals.
No, I know. Whatever. You're still killing a. You know what I mean? It's just massively hypocritical. Like, well, if you'd been a little kinder, we would have made a sitcom about you, tuna.
But you know what it is? It's more
And
than the
then you'd
mammal
be
thing.
alive.
But we're at least eating the tuna. Like the dolphin was like a
Just like-
collateral damage.
And they don't have delicious meat, I guess. Or do
No,
they?
that's not true. If you
Do they
saw
have
the
delicious
Cove, they
meat?
apparently have
Oh,
quite
yeah, they do
delicious
have delicious meat, yes.
Apparently.
Right.
I'm a vegan, so
I
I'm
am
better
a
than
vegan.
everybody.
I am a vegan.
Yes, actually-
We
Shut
are
up,
all
there's no
vegan.
way.
That
Sweet.
reduces our slavery footprint.
Yes, it
Okay,
did.
that's fantastic.
I can
Okay,
tell.
way to
That's
embarrass me.
We're all
Okay, like
vegans.
I'm supposed to be super lib, and you guys just crushed me on the lib meter. How do we get a panel of all vegans on this topic of all things? All right, now back to Annie's point for a second, Professor Kim. Conflict-free. Like, how are we supposed to do that? How are we supposed to pressure our shampoo company to tell us, like, you know what I'm saying, to give us more information so we can make decisions based on that information?
You know, I'm a law professor, and so again, this is where I think the law comes in. And there's been movement within some legislation in the United States to create more corporate accountability. Even in Los Angeles, we have an ordinance that requires corporations to pay attention to the factories that they're using, the labor conditions there. We have anti-sweatshop ordinance. And even in our federal trafficking legislation, there's been movement to hold more foreign labor contractors culpable.
So is that goes into the trade deals? Is that part of it, or is that something separate?
In the recruitment of workers, foreign workers that come to the United States. And so increased monitoring of those workers that are hired abroad and then brought to the United States.
And then one more thing on this, which is the immigration issue that you mentioned earlier. There was the Violence Against Women Act, and then the Republicans were like, they flipped out, and they were like, oh my God, you put undocumented immigrants there. Of course you should be able to crush them.
Right.
You won't even let us crush undocumented immigrant women. So how much of an issue is that?
It's a huge issue. So the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, that's a chief federal law that addresses human trafficking in the United States. A form of immigration relief is provided to human trafficking victims because of this threat of deportation. So our legislature did recognize that was an enormous problem that facilitated trafficking in the United States. They provided this opportunity for immigration relief for human trafficking survivors that are liberated and then will cooperate with law enforcement in prosecuting the traffickers. There have been obstacles in obtaining that relief, but nonetheless, it's great legislation. And so it's there. Yeah.
All right, my last point on this is, look, I want everybody to realize we're not going to save the world in one day. And you don't have to stress yourself out like, oh my God, I'm using the wrong kind of dog food. But we can get better every day. So let's try to find out more and try to help in all these ways that, Professor Kim and everybody else talked about.
I think the only way is just consume everything less. That's what I've come to. It's just like, I'm going to get a phone. I have an iPhone. You have an iPhone. Like,
way to put her on blast.
Yeah, just like.
And so you I guess just don't get every single thing new,
I love that
all
too.
the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is the only thing. Look, as a guy with 56 slaves.
Is that what it means? Do we really is that?
Well, obviously not, because I mean, we haven't gone to your
Sharing
homes,
some
but
slaves.
Well, that makes me feel much
One would
better.
say if we all have iPhones,
You're not-
we have some
yeah.
shared
some-
You're
we
not
have a lot of
slave
shared
holders.
slaves.
Yeah, this is now making me uncomfortable. All right, listen, we got to go on to the next topic here, and that's a really interesting one too. It's about a living wage here in this country and what some people are willing to do to get there, including hunger strikes by football players. I love this panel, so everybody come right back. We're gonna have a great time with that next topic as well. Come back. All right, back on the point. Now we've got one from Joseph Williams, who's a player at the University of Virginia, and he's fighting for a living wage for workers at the University of Virginia. It's a really interesting story. Let's watch.
Hi, my name is Joseph Williams. I'm a junior political and social thought major and a cornerback on the University of Virginia football team. Basically, my point is that the Living Wage campaign has been active at the university for 43 years, fighting for better wages for the lowest paid employees here. We just ended a hunger strike which lasted 12 days, included about 25 students and several community members. We have the support of the vast majority of the student body. We have a petition signed by 325 faculty members, and the Charlottesville City Council stands in solidarity with us. As of yet, though, the university has continued to ignore us. We had a meeting with them this morning, which they said we will not negotiate with you on the terms of a living wage. So they have continued to disregard the livelihoods of their lowest paid employees. So at this point, we have stopped the hunger strike, and we are planning and going into the next phase of our mission. And so basically the end goal is to get a living wage for all the university's employees and establish the caring community here at the University of Virginia. So that's my point. You can find out more at livingwage@uva.org. Thank you very much.
Neal, I want to ask you about the substance of it and then the hunger strike too. What do you think? Is that the right way to go?
Yeah, it seems as good as any.
Yeah, the problem is, and I feel bad because it's, I couldn't go on a 12-day hunger strike,
Right.
under any circumstances,
Right.
right? I could barely go on a 12-hour hunger strike. But
You love bacon.
I
Go
do.
ahead.
There's no question about that. But they do the hunger strike, and then the school says no, and they got to eat. So it's kind of embarrassing a little bit. But I love that they fought hard for it.
Yeah, I like that they did. Well, it's the victory. If there's a victory, is that athletes are doing anything. I think that's great. And then the LeBron and the Miami Heat posted a picture the other day of them with their hoods up,
right,
for Trayvon Martin. I think it's because athletes haven't really been political in a long time. Feels like the 70s, because I feel like there's two reasons for that. They want corporate sponsorships.
Yeah.
And I think more nowadays with the internet, it's sports culture is getting bitchier and tattletailier.
Huh.
Like, I know athletes that are funny, opinionated guys. And when they're getting interviewed, I always say to a friend of mine, watching you guys get interviewed is like watching a guy on the First 48, watching a suspect on that show, The First 48, where you're and then they just give the flattest answers. And he said, because if we say anything interesting or true, it will be a story for the rest of the year.
That's 100% right. They put them in this pressure cooker where they're like, okay, are you going to beat the Giants? They're like, yeah, we're going to beat the Giants.
Yeah.
Oh, he made a guarantee. How arrogant,
exactly.
et cetera.
So it's like,
and they become like politicians.
Yeah.
They're like totally risk averse.
Yeah.
I remember Muhammad Ali, John Carlos, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, I think his corporate point is the most interesting one. Annie, I mean, you're a professional poker player. You got sponsorships. Do they get on you guys too? Like, oh, don't do anything crazy? I mean, it's poker. I don't know.
Well, I think in poker you're probably allowed to be a little more controversial, but I know that I am really careful about what I say on Twitter because it lives there forever. If you say something in an article, it lives there forever, and it can actually affect your ability to get sponsorship, to have, if I write something really bad about McDonald's, then maybe McDonald's, not that I don't want a sponsorship from McDonald's, but you understand. So I have to think about, well, what am I saying about a particular brand? Is this a brand I might have a relationship with in the future? And all of that really matters because it lives there forever. And I think that that's part of the pressure, is that in a world before where not only did it not live forever, but there wasn't kind of the wildfire of noise and
right.
you know, Us Weekly and Perez Hilton or whatever it was, where someone would say something and then you'd know from crisis management that a week later it would just go away.
Right.
And that's just not the case anymore. So you just have to be much more careful about what you say.
So that's absolutely true, and that's why these guys should get even more credit for what they've done, and it's great to see them going back to an era where
it's
they're
going to be
active.
hard to hate the Heat now.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Like they're way less loathsome.
And ironically, they actually took some heat for that. The NBA did not like that because they actually try
to want to be apolitical.
They don't want them dressing up in hoodies, period. And that was not before. That was not the Trayvon Martin case. That was well before. Like 5 years ago, they told them.
There's the dress code, but that's literally their warm-ups. That was all NBA sanctioned gear.
Yeah.
But they don't. The NBA doesn't like them reminding people that they're black predominantly.
Yeah, that's the real shame of it.
It's like,
it's
don't
ridiculous.
No headphone, nothing. You can't listen. Like you have all kinds of no earrings, no throwback jerseys.
And then everybody gets in trouble when they do it and stuff. But when you look back, when the athletes put in the Olympics put the black gloves on, and that's the thing you remember, and that's the courage that you remember.
And they got a huge isotoner sponsorship after that. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
What's funny is how much you can almost brand yourself as like Charles Barkley has gotten arrested for soliciting prostitutes, threw a guy through a plate glass window. All this says anything, and it's because he just was like, I'm not going to pay attention, and he's got more sponsorships as a result. I always find it funny, all the white people that hated Muhammad Ali in the 60s and 70s now are like, Muhammad, you were right. You're such a brave man, even though I despised you in the 60s and 70s. If you stick around long enough, you go from being a pain in the ass to being a folk hero.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking about that this morning with someone else that has seen Roy Firestone from ESPN. He was talking about how now Muhammad Ali, everybody wants to take their picture with him, and they're the guys who hated him, and all of that is totally true. Now, Professor Kim, to the point they're trying to make about the living wage. Mm-hmm. Now, look, a lot of conservatives would say, "Hey, free market." Sure. As I was kidding around about in the first segment, sad day for you if you don't make a living wage.
Sure.
Is that a fair point? Why should we try to manipulate the market into giving somebody a living wage?
Yeah, freedom can also mean the free market, and if a worker freely accepts a certain wage and that's what the employer is giving them, then they should have a freedom to contract like that. But I think what's most brilliant about this living wage campaign is that they've created a movement and they've mobilized everyone, and now they've mobilized the athletes, and it's been going on for 43 years, and if we think back in our own civil rights history, there was never a civil rights victory without a movement, building a movement. What troubles me, though, is that this living wage campaign has been going on for 43 years, and so sure, the conservatives might say freedom to contract, but we see it with that clip that there is a mobilized group that has been advocating for a living wage for over 4 decades, and it hasn't gone anywhere. There is support for it, and it's a difference in principle of what we view as equality. Does equality mean some distribution of wealth or some ability to be self-sufficient, receive a livable wage, or is it something else?
So that's the essence of the question. So we have minimum wage at $7.25, Annie, right? Living wage that they're asking for is not exorbitant by any means. It's $13 plus benefits, right? So that barely gets you by, right? But now, and let's throw Taco Bell under the bus for no reason, right? Taco Bell, let's say, says, look, I want to pay $7.25 so I can sell the taco for cheaper so that I'll have more customers. What are you coming in here and being a pain in my ass and asking for $13?
Well, I don't think that, I think there's a difference between minimum wage, which is just, hey, the teenager needs to make enough money or whatever, and living wage. So my understanding is that with living wage, they're really pushing organizations that are getting money from taxpayers, that are the government. I don't think anybody's pushing Taco Bell to make sure that people are making $13 an hour, but the University of Virginia is receiving money from taxpayers and saying, look, our government should be making sure that people can feed their families and support their families. And so this is really directed at places that are getting government money, saying that the American government shouldn't be complicit in people starving.
That's a great point. So what do you guys think? We're all taxpayers. That would, of course, raise our taxes if every government employee at a bare minimum has to get a living wage.
Not necessarily, because the money that the workers received is taxed, A, and B, when you're talking about the difference between $7 or $13, we know that, you know, everybody spends some base amount of money, so most of that is going to cycle back into the community anyway. It's just going to go right back into the economy. It's not like someone making $13 an hour is suddenly going to hoard it under their mattress. So that's going to come back into the economy anyway. So I think that might, I don't know that it zeroes out because I'm not an economist, but I'm guessing it's not going to have that much of an effect.
2 for 2 with Annie. You're right, of course, the people who earn the least are the most likely to spend it, and it has a great multiplier effect on the economy. That's true, but nonetheless, my guess is it doesn't zero out in the end. If you pay people more and it comes from taxpayers, ultimately, the taxpayer probably has to pay a little more. Are we all comfortable with that?
Yeah, we'd have to be willing to give up some privilege, and I would be willing to do that. I'd be willing to pay
Neal
more
has been
taxes.
conspicuously silent.
I haven't paid taxes in a long time.
I'm going to give up one of my slaves.
No, I have no problem with height. Like, I don't know, maybe because I grew up, like, Catholic, and I've made a bunch of money a couple times, that I'm just like, have some. I don't know. Like, I'm not like, I earn this, but I have found that rich people, when they go, you know, when it's like we need to cut taxes for the rich, all the rich people I know hoard their money.
Yeah, but that's really interesting but not necessarily entertainers, you know.
Oh, no, not entertainers. I'm talking about guys that used to caddy.
Oh, by the way, I just remembered. You work with a guy who definitely didn't want more money.
Well, because we're both missionaries, me and Dave. No, I mean,
he turned down a lot of money.
Yeah, but he still makes a lot of money by going on the road. Like he didn't. Long story, but what I'm saying is, all the guys that when I was in high school and grade school as a caddy, those guys were the cheapest.
That's
like country club, they were the cheap. Right. They just, from what I understand, most rich people I know, and not showbiz people, who are generally cocaine addicts.
So they're a lot more loose with their money.
So they don't understand anything. They don't even know if they have when they get. Yeah. So most rich people I know empirically observe just hoard their money and put it in stuff. They'll maybe put an addition on their house, but it's mostly just putting it in assets and all that stuff. They're smart about it, but the idea that somehow we need to cut their taxes to stimulate the economy, I think is
well. There's
silly.
Another additional empirical side to that, which is that they've looked at the numbers, and rich people give, as a percentage of their money, they give a lot less than not just the middle class, but also the poor, which is really interesting. Yeah. So and so that goes to the point, and it's interesting because entertainment is a little bit different. Chris Rock, I just saw, said, "Hey, listen, I got enough money," and besides, he made a funny point about like, people are going to come get that money from me no matter what. You know, you can do it in higher taxes, or my aunt's cousin can come and go. My God, my kid can't go to school.
When they cut all of it, when they start cutting social programs, it's like, okay, well, guess what, rich people? All of your broke-ass cousins are going to start asking you directly. So
that's why they're building moats.
Yeah, but
should there be a limit on what people can earn? Should there be a limit?
Oh, man, I thought we had lived out to the maximum last segment when you all were vegans, but you just took it to a whole new level.
I mean, Chris Rock
limit on maximums, really.
Give his money. How much money does he want to give away? And how much does he think is enough for him to have? Is that...
Okay, you guys, I think, have made more money. So, would you want a maximum? Could you live with a maximum or not?
I don't see why there would be a maximum. I mean, I'm all for a free economy, but I just think that there's certain cases where our government should stand for certain principles, and one of them should be people should be able to feed their families. So that's why I say, like, I don't care what Taco Bell does. They're going to get 14-year-olds working for them whose parents are subsidizing the rest of their life that the $7.25 an hour isn't dealing with. But if our government is hiring 40-year-olds who have kids, and even with 2 wages in the house, they can't afford to feed their kids, I think that then we're complicit in something that is on that sliding scale of slavery, whatever that is on that sliding scale.
Yeah, there's no way I'm going for a maximum. But here's what we could do.
It should be $43,000.
That's
if I make over $43,000 a year, I get pretty wily and uncomfortable.
Then the cocaine comes into play, et cetera, right? No, but here's what we could do. We could do graduated scale, right? So the more you make, the higher percentage tax you pay. First of all, that's supposed to be our tax system, a progressive tax.
Not,
Unfortunately, it's not. Mitt Romney makes pays less taxes than a guy making $36,000 a year, which makes my head explode. That's so ridiculous and unjust, right? But we can get to a point where, hey, if you're making over 10 million, maybe your tax rate should be 70%. Right? And by the way, remember, until 1980, our tax rates were 70%, and sometimes 90%.
But there were tons of loopholes, correct?
There were some loopholes, but honestly, for the great golden years of America, the tax rate was a solid 70 to 90%, and sometimes even higher. And that brought us great prosperity.
That is funny when you do say, well, what's a fair tax rate? No one knows. No one knows.
Right.
You think 30, 43, 30, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know where it becomes like European, because no one knows what other countries pay in taxes. They don't know.
Well, they try to take it.
They just go, I know my taxes are too damn high. It's like, okay, well, what's not too damn high?
It's funny you say that, because they just did a study on that. And now this is just professors having taken in the information and at what point you get diminishing returns on taxes.
Right.
And they say without loopholes, it's actually 48% for the top bracket. With loopholes, it's 76%. So we're way lower than that. Now, that's just their estimate, but it's a fascinating, standard to look at. All right, I can't wait to see how they're going to beat the liberal standard they have set so far on this panel when we come back. Okay, I don't know. But so when we come,
56
I basically said Taco Bell can enslave people for all I care. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
So
I'm liberal.
There you go, strong and proud. I like that. So when we come back, speaking of liberals, Brazil is giving away plastic surgery to the poor. Are they all going to agree to that? Well, only one way to find out. Let's come back. All right, we're back on the point, and this time around we are going to talk about a fascinating concept I had not heard of. Apparently, free or subsidized plastic surgery. Brazil is doing it. Some doctors are doing it out of their goodness of their hearts, because they think, it's so popular in Brazil that it would be shame for the poor not to be able to partake as well. Some state hospitals in Brazil are also offering free plastic surgery for the poor. I feel like if we offered that here in the United States, all Republican heads would explode at the same time. Okay, but I'm curious to see what you guys think. Annie, let's start with you.
I mean, it's of the list of things that I think that we should be doing for the poor, plastic surgery is so low down on the list. I can't believe that anybody's putting resources into that. I mean, I'm very ambivalent about plastic surgery and Botox as it is, just in terms of what we're doing to what we think beautiful is. But I don't know why you would, that just seems crazy. Because it's not like Brazil has nobody who is starving or needs food or shelter or something.
I know,
like
but
that.
they say, Annie, they say it's a Brazilian thing. You wouldn't understand, and that there's a lot of
Probably not.
that there's so much plastic surgery in Brazil that they feel like you're denying the poor a chance to be beautiful. It's a basic human right.
I
there,
like
even
that the homeless people are going, I'll take a crap behind this dumpster, but not with this nose. Like, you need to get in. Someone needs to take care of this. I'll live outside, but not with these spider veins on my legs.
Now, the flip side, Professor Kim, is that there's some chance that if you look better, you might be able to get a job easier.
Right, I read that. That physical attractiveness actually translates to salary. And and access to
and height with men,
better life, or height,
taller men make more money.
We should start giving out free how they do the thing where they break your legs and then they slowly crank them as they knit together so that you can be taller and get a better job.
Yeah, but I would like to hear the reaction from the target population. I would like to hear what their choice is. Would they rather have would they rather exercise this right to be beautiful, or would they rather have a right to a decent job with living wage and what do you think?
You may be surprised. I mean,
I think you may be surprised too.
People are really vain,
especially in the culture of Brazil, as they explain it in the stories that write about this. That it's so prevalent that they feel like why do only the rich get to, partake in this? And then Annie, like you, they would probably say like, oh, easy for Annie to say, she's already hot. And now she wants to deny the rest of us. So how do you answer for that?
I've never done Botox or any plastic surgery to my face, clearly.
Bullshit.
So I'm not, it's true.
Yeah, we don't believe that for a second, right?
I don't know. It's like I have very sort of ambivalent feelings about changing standards of beauty. So I got the first season of The $6 Million Man for Christmas. And I watched it, and I had to look up how old Steve Austin was, because he looked like he was 55, but he's actually 34. And then all of his paramours also looked like they were 50. Because, they were smoking, and they had wrinkles, and they were out in the sun, and they didn't do Botox. And they were all, like, these women in their 20s who looked like they were 50. And I realized, like, we've so distorted what beauty is. So I don't know, we're feeding into that.
You've also, as a poker player, learned how to hold your face perfectly still.
Right, that's right, instead of Botox.
Yeah, that's your natural Botox.
Yeah,
right, because I'm actually 70 years old.
You can get yourself into a poker, into a trance.
Can you give us your poker face? Like, let's see, like, your natural Botox face? Oh, shit.
Did you fold?
Like, I was like, oh, there's no way. I don't have it. I don't have it. I can't beat it.
Can you tell I have a good hand? This is me with a pair of aces.
I wonder if the plastic surgeons
Is that good?
That's
all in.
So now, this is not just in Brazil, by the way. In Buffalo, there was 3,400.
New York? As in
New York, yeah. They had 3,400 teachers that were eligible for free procedures like Botox and tummy tucks because of their insurance plans. But the school district came back and said, hey guys, we don't have enough money. So we're either going to lay off 100 people or we're going to take away your plastic surgery from your insurance plans. They voted. They said lay off 100 people.
Laying them off.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? That's the Neal's point.
I heard that some of them had so much surgery that they looked like they were from Albany. That's how hot they'd gotten.
Okay, and if they hadn't gotten it, they would have looked like they were disconnected.
They voted for people to lose their jobs so that they could have Botox?
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is
Why is the insurance paying for this anyway, though?
People are horrible.
What is the medical need for Botox?
No, I know. I'm
I mean,
blown away by
basically, I just want to make sure I understand. So insurance won't pay for the pill, but they'll pay for you to get Botox?
Well, these days, I know. Before
Once you get, they won't until you're hot. They won't pay for the pill.
Right, then they will.
Once you get hot through surgery, then they're like, you're going to be getting a lot of play. You better take one of these. People are horrible, and they just want. I find the older I get, the softer my take on plastic surgery becomes. Like, well, I don't. There's a slippery slope, but between dyeing your hair, it's like you'll dye your hair. There's all sorts of things that are just accepted social norms where it's like, yeah, you dye your hair, and then, but then it's like, okay, and then what, or you shave, or you, whatever you're doing, it's some form of, it's a bit gray, particularly the uglier and older I get. It gets grayer,
it's a point
like
well taken.
My hair.
So I want to establish that baseline. Are you against plastic surgery, period, or do you think it's like, I think my rule has become, I used to be against it. I'm now, not for myself, but for anybody else, because of course I judge other people, is 2 and you're done. If you do more than 2, you're going to become Michael Jackson, okay?
What if it's
like, yeah.
what if it's on completely different parts of your body, though?
Okay, and it has to be 2 different parts of your body. Because if you go back to your nose twice or your breast twice, you're screwed. Because then you're going to do it 17 times.
You challenge people, like, if you can't get hot in 2 moves.
Exactly. Exactly. Then you're never going to get hot anyway.
Yeah, it's never going to happen for you.
Like, that's some perfect examples of me. Like, you're like, oh, tummy tuck, or, oh, forget it. Like, you're never going to do it under 2 moves.
I think plastic surgery is your choice, but I think most people who get plastic surgery on their face, I think that they don't look younger, they look different.
They look like they had surgery.
I've
always said about plastic surgery, you're basically saying, screw all the people I know, I'm trying to trick new people.
Right.
Because everyone that knows you is like, what are you doing? It's like when actors do it.
Bald people
actually for the celebrities, because so I don't really have a visceral reaction to plastic surgery in and of itself, but like Annie said, when I see it, it's very obvious, and so I feel like the people who are getting plastic surgery are doing it to look a certain way in front of the public or in front of a camera. Are they? Is that why they're?
No, I think that
doing it?
I think for certain people have had good plastic surgery.
Yeah.
Roseanne looked way better after she got, like, she's one of those people. I think Susan Sarandon's had a little bit of work done. I don't know for a fact, but someone tells me her age and the way she looks, some people get it good, and then there are other people that look like cat people.
You know what? That's exact. Morgan Fairchild looks gorgeous, and
Yeah,
I think
no
she's done a
When have
great.
you seen Morgan Fairchild recently?
Until
I run into her in the
how it
lib
looks.
circuit, like it's Hollywood, you know.
You play a lot of doubles tennis with Morgan Fairchild.
So,
Morgan, I mean,
Because
Morgan
you're from the
Fairchild,
70s.
like-
You drive your
Right.
chocolate
And I watched the
brown
Bionic
Mercedes.
Man. They can rebuild them. It's true. They can.
They can. They have
So
the technology.
I'm going to throw one more wild card into this. Some transsexual people say, "Hey, you know what? The state should pay for my surgery." In fact, they've sued prisons to allow for the prisons should pay because they say, "Look, I need to get to my identity, and this is part of my core being." Thoughts?
I'm okay with gender reassignment, but
See, I got you back to your liberal
but
roots.
only,
Okay.
but only to the point of like make me look like a woman, but then you can't get
But
like.
not a hot woman.
Well,
which
no,
is
no,
like,
no.
Yeah, you get one
Well,
shot.
look,
But your
if
thing
you're-
is you
yeah.
get one shot at
Yeah.
being a woman, and if you're ugly, you're on your own.
No, you get you get breasts, whatever, and feminize your face. But then if you go to Joan Rivers' point, like that's your own business. If you want to have 17 billion.
I gotta say, it's wildly hypocritical to say like you can get, because I could go with like, well, I'm a pretty person trapped in this face.
No, but
So I
gender
need-
reassignment is an actual. It's in the
Biological.
I
DSM.
want-
It's a biological
Yeah.
condition.
Right, but I want.
It's like if
I'm-
you had a car accident, I'd be like plastic surgery away.
Yeah, and
Your
actually,
face got mashed into the steering
Yeah.
wheel. You should be
yeah,
able
and
to
the
fix
plastic
that.
surgeons that specialize in that, somehow I have more respect for them than other
Yeah.
plastic surgeons.
Well, because
Oh,
they're
sure,
helping.
yeah.
Because
they're
they're
helping like
Yeah,
people that
it's-
are in that are in
Actually
dire
have a
straits.
condition.
Right. Yeah.
Like if you have a
It's-
hair lip, get a cleft palate, whatever.
Yeah.
Like go
Again,
ahead.
but it's a gray area, which is why I'm going in for surgery tomorrow.
Nice.
Okay,
You're
by
gonna
the way, I
Botox
have to
the
go
back
back
of
to
it.
because it's underrated how funny what Neal just said was earlier. Like, I felt like I was born pretty, but I looked in the mirror and I got this.
You have no idea how beautiful I am inside, and you got to look at this mess.
So, I want to go around the table. Transsexual reassignment surgery, yes.
I'm in support of that.
You're gonna do that?
Yeah.
Free
I mean,
pla-
I'm not going to do it, but
Free
I'm in support of it.
You would
Yeah.
support it. Free plastic surgery in Brazil, though? No.
What's that? I just wanted to question the thing, right to be, if the target population, that's what they want, then, I sort of feel like more power to them, but I don't know.
Okay, transsexuals, yes or no? Poor Brazilians, yes or no?
Transsexuals, like, would I sleep with one?
Well, at your leisure, you can answer that as well, but
You don't know,
would you
where am
pay
I?
for their surgery?
Hey, am I in Buffalo? Where
Do
am
you know? Are you drunk?
I don't know in either. I kind of say no to both.
No to both.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
I say no to prisoners. I say no to people that have been in car accidents. No, I'm kidding. If you get in a car accident, but your insurance would cover that. But I don't. But I'm against it for I don't care. It's like I just got to take your word for it. I have to spend $8,000.
But here's
whatever.
the thing, Neal, take your word for it. Who's going to do the gender reassignment surgery?
Right.
Because they could. Like, it's not like,
just cut it off.
You know what I'm saying?
Just for the hell of it.
Yeah, like, oh, the prison's
but
paying for
again,
it?
it's
Turn me into a
basically-
chick.
Are you chopping that off because it's free?
It's basically a psychological. Look, there have been times after like a crazy night where I was like, I'm going to chop this thing off. Now.
Okay, all right.
No, hold on.
went really
but
deep
it's
here.
basically a psychological issue. Ultimately, that they're going, I'm a woman, so I need. It's a psychological issue that that Rick Santorum can train away at camp. No, I don't. But it just seems like it's a pretty gray area if someone just goes, I'm a man, I'm a woman, and
You have to go through like years of they have.
Yeah, I think the gray area ends when they
You're getting
cut
a
off
lot
the
of
when you're
attention.
cutting right,
Yeah,
like you're hey,
like,
cut
I
my
wasn't
penis
quite sure how
off.
they cut my penis. Yeah, okay, I'm
I
pretty
don't
sure.
know
Right.
any men who are like, just cut it off because it's free for they're no, I like
But
my
I
penis.
think
Please
I don't
cut it
know.
off.
My head goes to someone doing it for attention, but I don't know.
No, that's
But
crazy.
maybe
They
I-
weed them
Look,
out.
I've had a lot of crazy experiences with transsexuals. So
Clearly.
So you've got that at least on your side. Okay. All right. And I know you're saying
Gender
transsexual-
reassignment's
Yes.
okay. I find the Brazil thing bizarre and upsetting, so I'm going to say no just because it personally upsets me about where humanity is going and the Terminator's coming or something.
I would pay my tax dollars for everyone in America to have a Brazilian wax.
just when you thought it couldn't get any more uncomfortable. Okay. All right, by the way, I vote with Annie. All right, that's our show. Now, Kathleen Kim, professor at Loyola University, what do you got coming up?
Friday, March 30th, we have a human trafficking symposium addressing local, national, international anti-trafficking efforts with representatives from the government, law enforcement, as well as civil rights leading experts in the anti-trafficking movement. And
Neal Brennan will be doing his stand-up right before, right, to warm up the crowd?
Yes, part of my human, just speaking of human suffering, is that, that's what I do to the audience. What am I doing? I'll be doing stand-up Bloomington, Indiana, Baltimore, Charlotte, North Carolina, Jersey at the Stress Factory. I'm going to be around.
All right, check him out on Twitter, and you'll be able to follow where you are. And then Annie Duke, of course, the winner of like 88 different things in poker, and your book is?
Decide to Play Great Poker. You can find it on Amazon. Good place to find it.
And get the link from the youngturks.com so that we get a piece too.
Okay, there you go.
And by the way, that's exactly where I'm going to buy it right after the show, because I talked to her earlier, and I'm like, I got to get that book. All right, you guys have been an unbelievable panel. Thank you so much. And we'll see all of you guys next week.
They're vegans unite.
The vegan champions of the world!
We can barely hold our arms up. We're so weak.
We have
from lack of protein.
Right.